A few times a year, Valve hosts the Steam Next Fest, a week-long digital celebration of upcoming games in the form of piles upon piles of demos. How is anyone supposed to sift through all of this? Allow me to present to you the Next Fest Demo Disc, a curated collection of demos from a variety of genres, art styles, and playstyles, with a focus on games flying under the radar that you're likely to have missed. I played well over 50 demos in the last few days, and I've managed to narrow down 8 of them that I think you need to know about. And hey, look, this volume includes a bonus lightning round too, hell yeah! So free up some hard drive space and get that wish listing finger prepped, cause it's time to boot up the Next Fest Demo Disc. Brush Burial is one of those games that I came across and thought to myself, this looks sick, I should play this eventually. Eventually's been floating around long enough that the game's sequel, Brush Burial Gutter World, is just a month away, and I gotta say, I made the right call not putting this one into eventually jail. Gutter World is a sort of immersive sim, Hitman-like assassination game that's all about expression. Not just in terms of picking outfits for your sexy monster player character, but in terms of gameplay as well. The mission included with the demo simply gives you a target to take down and leaves everything else up to you. You could take the fully silent approach, sneak around in the dark, use your whip-like tail to climb just about any surface you want, and employ your powerful thighs against the necks of anyone who stands in your way. Or you could mingle with the locals, grab some booze to schmooze your way into off-limits areas, maybe throw on a stolen badge and threaten the hired goons with losing their job, or just go in guns blazing if you really want to, but that'll be tougher than you might think. The way the inventory works is a little strange for one thing, in a way that feels a bit cumbersome, requiring you to manually put away and designate a key to each item. I think this is actually pretty smart though, as it forces you to be a little more considerate with each action you take. If you do take some time to chat around, you might also just feel bad about murking everyone. These freaks, and Fennel, the player character, have a lot of personality, and I enjoyed learning about Brush Burial's world through speaking with them. The game has different medals you can earn at the end of each mission based on your performance, which, most importantly, is how you'll unlock those cool new outfits and accessories. Something I really love is that you can hold down the shift key to enter a slow-mo mode that lets you see key items and the heartbeats of nearby characters. The game lets you do this as long as you want. No meter management, no cooldown, just slow motion to your heart's content. Things like this make it feel like Gutter World just really wants you to explore and engage with its small but densely packed space and does everything it can to facilitate that, and I think that's really cool. Very excited to play this one next month. One of my favorite first-person shooters born from the renewed interest in retro-style FPS of recent years was 2023's Herat, a Quake-like game from developer Spytonev with a unique, beautifully depressing 1980s Czechoslovakian setting. Brno Transit is the newest game from that same developer, and while some of Herat's DNA can be found in Brno's visual stylings and sense of humor, the closest thing to a gun that you'll be holding in front of your face is a hot dog. And also the hose that you'll be using to clean up after said hot dog gives you explosively violent tummy troubles. In Brno, you'll play as a subway train conductor in for your first day on the job. On paper, your various tasks seem simple enough. Navigate the subway, report to your manager, put on your uniform. The problem though is that you're having the worst first day on the job humanly possible, and everything that can go wrong does. Brno is somewhat of a rarity in the video game space, a genuine horror comedy. able to dance back and forth between scary moments and environments to some of the best comedic bits I've seen in a game in a good while. I'm extremely curious to see where the full game is going with all of this, because really, the whole thing is one long joke in and of itself. You start the game thinking you'll get to drive some trains, get given the runaround for 30 minutes, and then right when you're about to start driving, the game screams at you that it's over. I loved it. I'm typically very much not a puzzle game enjoyer, but there have been some exceptions over the years. Usually in the form of mashups that combine standard board-based puzzles with other genres, like Nintendo DS classics Henry Hatsworth or Puzzle Quest. But those were ages ago now, and nothing has really scratched that particular itch for me until Numeral Strike. Numeral Strike has a similar structure to a lot of run-based games that you're already likely familiar with. Choose a character with specific traits, raise your attack and defense against an enemy, buy items between rounds, that sort of thing. I'll admit that I almost didn't try this one out when I saw its board filled with numbers, and if you're as math stupid as I am, let me assure you now that it's nowhere near as scary as it looks, and the game does a great job easing you into its puzzle system. You'll begin each turn with a set amount of actions, which you'll use to match either adjacent pairs of like numbers, or pairs of numbers that add up to 10. The twist is that you can pair up distant pairs of numbers without spending any actions, so long as a clear straight path exists to do so. Each character, including the enemy, also has items and abilities that trigger based on pairs that include a specified number. A basic example of this is the starter knight class that gains attack damage based on how many times you match pairs with the number 1. But as you may expect, things get much more complicated as you progress. If you're like me and not particularly puzzle-pilled, there's an optional hint system, which is nice, but even I didn't need it. I also love that there's no timed component as far as I've seen, so it's nice to just take your sweet time and try to optimize your turn. Numeral Strike has a soft, pale color palette and painterly look that I quite like, and most importantly for a game like this, everything feels and sounds very tactile and satisfying to click around on. I think this one stands out amongst similar games and has the potential to get super popular, and I'm already excited to get back to it after I finish making this video, which is always a good sign. I covered Balatro back in Next Fest Demo Disc Volume 2, and even then, it was very clear that the game was going to be huge. But still, it's funny just how many games are explicitly marketing themselves as Balatro-likes not even 2 years later. While many of these games invoke Balatro on a very surface level, none of them that I've encountered capture the essence of what makes Balatro so immediately appealing. Taking a game most people have at least some broad familiarity with, poker, and using that as a base to get weird with. What Balatro did with poker, Checkmage does with chess. I wanted to go ahead and get the Balatro talk out of the way because despite the similarity in concept and some obvious visual inspiration, Checkmage is absolutely its own thing. Actually, the game that immediately came to mind when I started the demo is the Pokemon TCG game on the Game Boy. Checkmage is not run-based and plays out much more similarly to that game, plopping you into a classroom of the Waverly Community Wizard College where you can walk around and chat with other characters, top-down RPG style, who introduce you to the game of Checkmage, a game seemingly everyone on the planet plays. Checkmage, at its most basic, plays by the same rules as chess. Familiar pieces move in familiar ways around a familiar, if slightly shrunken, chessboard. The first big twist is that pieces are added to the board turn by turn via a deck of cards of your building from a hand pulled of up to 3 cards. One piece can be moved per turn, and placing new ones requires paying a specific magic cost with points that you'll earn at the end of each turn. But there's still much more to Checkmage, like chess pieces that feel plausibly like they could have been lost to time, like the Wazir, who can move or capture one space in any cardinal direction, or the Peon, the pawn's weird cousin who can only move forward one space diagonally, but can capture an enemy piece up to 2 spaces directly ahead. Just when you feel like you have a firm grasp on what sorts of pieces can show up, Ananke the Reckless over here plops down the Banshee, who can move and capture in any direction, but will shatter like glass after doing so. You probably noticed the cracked tiles on the board here, which is another of Ananke's cards that lets them break apart a patch of tiles, which will crumble away after a piece is moved off from it. Melvin the Miserable lays down traps all over the board that capture any piece foolish enough to step on them, and throws your king off the board with his conveyor belt, though he admits that's probably cheating. Similarly to the Pokemon TCG game, defeating an enemy allows you to take up to 2 of their cards to add into your own collection, including those aforementioned tile effects. Good luck with that though, because this game is surprisingly brutal, at least for me. The maximum deck size here is only 8 cards, so you have to be judicious about what you prepare against each opponent. That being said, finally beating Ananke after a few attempts and some deck altering felt very good, but Melvin's still giving me trouble. It should go without saying at this point, but the game is also just gorgeous, with so many little details that elevate the whole experience. Like the way cards and pieces move and jiggle around as you drag them, or the way your opponents chat with you and animate expressively during battle. I love the way little sweat beads pop up over your character when you sprint in the walking around segments. Not only can you change your card backs to a bunch of different options, you can seriously just draw your own if you want. It's so cool. There's a lot of picks in this video for the freaks, but Checkmage is a game that I would recommend to just about anyone. Hey, Editing Mantron here. I watched someone else play this game who isn't bad at it, and there's so much cool stuff I missed that I felt like I had to bring up. There's spell cards like Limber that lets any piece move to adjacent tiles, or Levitates, which lets a piece move onto blank spaces, even beyond the borders of the map. Pieces other than the king can be considered regal, which means that an enemy can have no king, but a small army of regal pawns that you'll have to take out to win. After you beat the last opponent in the library, you can unlock even more customization. You can fully customize your little animal guy, change your title, and you can even sign your name. It's so cute. This also unlocks the Well Within a Well, gauntlet mode where you can challenge randomly generated opponents. It's just so good. You should really go try it out. I've been playing a ton of the recently released House of Necrosis, a Resident Evil 1 style game with a mystery dungeon twist, trading in the static old Spencer Mansion and real-time shooting for a randomized dungeon delve with tactical turn-based combat. I like this game a lot, but it's kinda got me itching for a more traditional early Resident Evil style game, and it seems like I'm in luck because the floodgates on RE-like games have burst open in the last year or two, spilling out quite a few demos into this season's Next Fest. Ground Zero is a pretty cool one with some interesting middle ground between modern and retro survival horror mechanics if you're looking for something a bit more approachable. For me though, the standout this Next Fest is Subversive Memories. Set in 1980s Brazil during a military dictatorship, you'll navigate an abandoned base, finding keys, solving puzzles, and filling out your map in that satisfying Resident Evil fashion. What really got me on board though is just how cool the enemies are. While games like Alan Wake have done the whole shadow people that you kill with the power of light thing before, Subversive has probably the best execution of this concept that I've seen yet. Enemies are fully invisible outside of the shadow they cast, and trying to determine their position when multiple light sources are casting shadows all around you can be nerve-wracking, and defeating them leaves this striking human-shaped pile of ash on the floor. There's some great subtle scares here too, leading you to question even the shadows cast by your own flashlight. The only real downside here is that the demo ends super abruptly, but I'm eager to see where the rest of the story goes in the full game. If you've been following the Next Fest demo disc from the beginning, you know I love when games take an established genre and fully reconsider it from the ground up. Terror-type Alchemy is a great example of this, presenting a third-person stealth action experience that is wildly weird in every way possible. The aesthetic and presentation are unique, of course, but even the basic controls and UI are unlike anything else I've played. You'll play as Aronica Cortez, an alchemist thrown in prison for crimes unspecified, with your forced labor sentence acting as a tutorial. One immediate difference from similar games is the way you interact with the environment. Right-clicking your mouse will toggle between camera movement and an on-screen cursor, which you'll use to identify and interact with objects in the environment, similar to what you'd more commonly see in MMOs, or Realms of the Haunting if you're nasty. It's a bit strange, but once you get used to it, it's quite satisfying to break boxes and gather up supplies in this way. Finding ingredients allows you to engage with the game's most interesting system, Alchemy, where you'll drop objects into your transmutation circle and draw out symbols representing different elements, enabling the crafting of various supplies, most important of which being bombs. Perhaps unsurprisingly, all of this bomb play eventually results in Aronica's death, but upon awakening in the afterlife, she receives a heavenly mandate to overthrow her oppressive government through acts of destruction. Aronica is resurrected in a dark, rainy city and left with two simple objectives: blow up the engines and escape. A nearby villager offers a few words of advice, such as how to craft health potions, but you're pretty much on your own from here. Terror-type Alchemy is a game that wants you to experiment with it, and it's a lot of fun to wander around and come to grips with its systems. Stealth here is surprisingly forgiving and shows you exactly how quiet and how visible you are via these little meters in the corner. Outside of the bombs, which are quite satisfying to use within the city walls,
what's going on?
there's no other means of combat, at least as far as I could tell. I did find tons of supplies like gunpowder that make me wonder what exactly is possible to create, but I had plenty of fun just sneaking around and tossing bombs from on high. There is a bit of a learning curve to Terror-type Alchemy, but if you're willing to set aside the conventions you're used to, there's a lot to love here. Something I love about these Next Fests is that, without fail, there's always one demo I go into with low expectations and come out with something new that I'm dying to play more of. Runeblight is a game that feels tailored to me specifically in a few ways. I love how it looks. Simplistic geometry with crunchy, sometimes photorealistic texture work. It's hard to be bothered that some of the enemies are just a few steps removed from Minecraft Steve when the environments look this good. The game portrays a great sense of place, taking you from your cathedral basement imprisonment into nearby courtyards and outdoor ruins, through abandoned living quarters and libraries. Navigation feels great in that classic survival horror kind of way, down to the doors locked with matching symbol keys, and looping back between buildings you thought you were done with. Exploration is rewarded mechanically too, with rune shards stashed away that you'll need to track down if you want to upgrade your character. There's also more substantial runic powers to find, which allow you to alter your build in more interesting ways, though occasionally with downsides that you'll have to weigh the cost of. Runeblight is described on its Steam page using a lot of this-likes and that-of-anias, and while I'm sure that makes sense from a discoverability perspective over there, I've avoided invoking those terms here because I think they can deter as many people as they appeal to. But I think Runeblight is very smart about what it chooses to, and perhaps more importantly, chooses not to pull from those other genres. Unlike some other games doing the whole FPS plus Souls mashup thing, movement speed here is fast. Dashing has a surprisingly short cooldown, and there's no stamina bar to worry about, so zoom around all you want. On the other hand, reloading is quite slow, and there's fewer enemies than you might be expecting from something that looks so much like Dusk or Quake, but they do hit pretty hard, making for a combat rhythm that I quite like, moving quickly but making sure your shots count. I think I knew I was sold on this one when I got to this quiet courtyard, a sort of hub-like area of the demo. There's a nice goat lady in here, Henrietta, who takes a moment away from her reading to chat with you about the world. It's these quiet moments of downtime, talking to a strange but friendly person in an otherwise dark, uncaring world that really stick with me. Honestly, the only real low point in Runeblight's demo to me is the boss fight. A battle with a spectral goat that, while showcasing some nice visual flair, is a bit overly simplistic mechanically. Still, I'm excited to spend more time with Henrietta, and I'm quite glad I stumbled across this one. Since the very first day I played Unreal Tournament back in 1999, I've been a huge fan of Instagib. Perfect accuracy, one shot, one kill. Just high adrenaline first-person shooting distilled to its purest form. Repeater, an Instagib-only, fast-paced competitive arena shooter, attempts to raise your blood pressure even further by introducing two big twists to that formula. The first is that each individual player has control over their own gravitational pull, which can be swapped at any time by facing a surface and pressing the E key. So waiting around for someone's fall path to line up with your crosshair might not go the way you're hoping. The second is that all of Repeater's matches take place in infinitely repeating MC Escher-esque megastructures. This combination leads to a lot of interesting scenarios that you won't find in any other FPS. This infinite repetition applies to you as well though, so be careful not to own yourself. I love the minimalist look of the game on an aesthetic level, but it's also smart in terms of legibility, as even while swapping gravity and flying all over the place, it's surprisingly easy to get your bearings. There's some neat customization options here too, with different heads for your blobulous player model, as well as different color palettes for the levels, though some of the redder ones probably will hurt your ability to spot players. I don't have much more to say about this one, it kinda just speaks for itself. If you're watching this and thinking, damn, this looks sick, well, you're right. It's admittedly hard to play for more than like 15 minutes at a time, but those 15-minute sessions are consistently fun as hell. These were probably the toughest Next Fest picks to narrow down yet, simply because I played way too many interesting games. So to try something different, I'm going to end the video with a little lightning round of suggestions that I didn't have time to dedicate full sections to. Evil Egg is basically the ideal arcade game in my mind. A twin-stick shooter with a wild visual style that manages to stay legible despite the copious amounts of colorful Space Invader gore that you'll litter each room in. This game absolutely fucks and would probably have its own section, but I didn't have much more to say other than just look at it. Look, I know a lot of people are tired of Vampire Survivors clones, and I think this one will do just fine without any help from me, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't love this thing. Hellmaiden is a sequel to Dante's Inferno, but Dante and Virgil, and everyone else for that matter, are women and also gay for each other. The card system is really fun to mess around with, and the art is absolutely gorgeous. You'll know pretty immediately if this is for you. Holder of Place is a satisfying auto-battler card game with a Citizen Sleeper-esque aesthetic, with a nice smooth ramp-up of complexity and difficulty that makes you think you're good, and then presents you with an optional boss that beats you to dust. It's a good time. Eyes of the Elderwood is a first-person survival horror game where you can shoot with your right hand, of course, but you can use your left hand to cast spells by drawing symbols in the air. This creates these tense situations where maybe you decide to save ammo by casting a fireball, only to get eaten while trying to wave your finger around. The puzzles and stealth segments are admittedly a little rough, but if you're willing to overlook those issues, there's some really promising stuff here. Alaric is an edgy and cheesy, in a good way, FPS take on Castlevania. It's rough in a few places, but punching above what you might expect in a lot of other ways. The movement feels really good, and the boss fight was surprisingly exciting. Keta Siphon is probably the best straightforward retro shooter that I played this next fest. It's got flavors of Far Cry 1 or Sin, but with map design closer to older key hunting style FPS, I really enjoyed it. Dude, Motor Slice, it's architecture plus girl. Also a pretty fun third-person action game with some Prince of Persia-esque platforming, check it out. Verho Curse of Faces is a Kingsfield-like, similar to some of the ones we covered back in Demo Disc Volume 3. I was only able to put a little bit of time into this one, but I really liked what I played from it. I'm excited to go back to the demo once this video's done.
Hey you! Stop! Who are you?
Okay, there's so many more that I want to mention, but I'm simply out of time. Consider any game that I'm showing footage of here right now to be worthy of checking out in some way. If you have any recommendations for games that I missed, please do let me know in the comments. But until next time, bye bye!